The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
We are two Unks Talking TV. You know the shows that you grew up watching, like Family Matters, Facts of Life, and Three's Company too. So come and join us and take a walk down memory lane as we talk about the
Let's start over. My bad, y'all. I'm here, Uncle Eba. That's Uncle Hugh over there. That makes us two uncles, right?
Most definitely.
So we two uncles, and what we about to do? Talk some TV. So yeah, we did this show because a lot of y'all was like, "Yeah, y'all cool and everything, but the sports thing, not so much for me. Not really feeling that." Okay, I want to talk some TV. So yeah, we're gonna talk some TV for y'all and talk some TV with y'all. So as we talk about whatever show we talking about that week, we definitely wants to hear from you, the people. My man's Andre checking in. What's up, Dre? What's happening? Thanks for checking into the show. Two Unks Talking TV. Like I said, we definitely want y'all to interact with the show. So by all means, let us hear your comments, your suggestions, your thoughts, your favorite episodes, your favorite characters, all that stuff as we talking. Now this week, what we talking, Hugh? Who we talking about?
Good old Family Matters. Wanted to talk about that because that's a spinoff to The Perfect Strangers, but then they had their own elements of surprises.
All right, well, hold on. Let's start there at the beginning. Like you said, Family Matters was a spinoff of this show, Perfect Strangers. Now keep in mind, they kind of stole that show, Hugh. Let's be honest. If you know your TV, you already know Perfect Strangers was just the 80s version of shows that been done in the past. Perfect Strangers was nothing but the odd couple. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing but bosom buddies all over again. It was that type of stuff.
But without, the going to the skies and being in an all woman's,
Right.
hotel.
It was Laverne and Shirley. Basically it was your buddy comedy. It was plenty of them before, plenty of them again. So truthfully, that's why Perfect Strangers only lasted as long as it did. But in the meanwhile, the story was here's these two kids coming from different walks of life. They moved to Chicago, find out their cousins live together. They work at the newspaper. Who else works at the newspaper? Lady that ends up getting her own show. That would be Jo Marie Patton. One of these characters here. The one with the hair. Okay. She was initially working there as the elevator operator. She ends up getting this whole little hookup over there at the department store where they made her head of security. And that's where our story starts with the show we talking about tonight, Family Matters. Hold on, we got comments coming in. You know I'm liking that.
Carl should have cut that hair at the time.
A lot of were duplicated for TV. Yep, absolutely, Coach Dino. Thanks for checking in.
Recycling shows.
Yep.
What's going on, Queen?
We got Queen Gemini checking in. Hey, y'all, what's going on? The sitcoms, yep. Yep, just repeats for the most part, but some was better than others.
A lot of them was better than others.
Right. So, like I said, we talking Family Matters tonight, y'all. And of course, it all started in a little house in Chicago, where these three people here were supposed to be the main characters of the show. You got Jo Marie Patton. Like I said, we talked about her job. We got her husband, Carl, who was a police officer. And we kind of find out they basically hired him because he was popular at the time. Because remember, you remember where he came from. Talk about it, Hugh.
Good old Die Hard, man. That was a really good movie, man. One of my favorite Christmas movies. I don't care what nobody say. That is a Christmas movie. And it's just basically he was one of those household faces for being on there, man. And he played. Did he play more than just that? He played a few type of cop roles.
Yeah,
too.
he ended up being a cop in a few different movies and TV shows as well. TGIF, that's right, because that did eventually become part of that lineup.
That was a good lineup too, man. It seemed like we talk about that so much too after TGI Friday, man. How things just change, and more or less that's when cable and the different satellite company was able to invade because it wasn't really nothing on. Because remember how bad the shows were. Uncle Phil clone.
and it's interesting we talk about that. We definitely talk about that. Yes, Die Hard was a Christmas movie. I agree. Okay, so here's the deal, y'all. The show came out. It basically was these two initial shows. It was, of course, Family Matters and Full House. So we'll talk about it at a later date. Them was the two primary shows on TGI Friday.
Absolutely.
Once upon a time, ABC was the dominant Friday network, okay? Back in the day where they had this little show called The Brady Bunch. Everybody was watching The Brady Bunch on Friday. About the same time TGIF went. But then as the years went on, they kind of fell off on Fridays. Especially when, you go to CBS. And remember for a while, CBS was running Friday nights. Because, of course, they had The Incredible Hulk, The Dukes of Hazzard, and Dallas. So they had that going on.
And you can't deny that lineup, man. Why not? Why not go to CBS when you know all those on back to back to back?
Right, but again, that was the 70s. We talking the late 80s now, was when this show pops up. Now, if you remember the first few episodes, not so much.
It was a little too family, like it was too serious to me, if I can say, man. It was because you wanted to have that dinosaurs.
And now you old school, you remember that show, Coach Dino. And that did come on Friday for a minute. He right about that.
But yeah, it was just
it was it was real generic.
Yeah.
Now,
like they was trying to do too much to be on a serious level.
Now, see, here's a key part to them early shows. Y'all remember this lady?
Yeah, definitely remember her and the mother that was on Family Matters on Give Me a Break. That's why I remember them two from.
And of course, that's where they got her from because, they wanted somebody that was a regular that people would connect to. Because keep in mind, outside of Give Me a Break, it was several other little shows that they tried to plug her in over the years. Interesting fact about Rachel Tompkins, for those of y'all who's old school like me, originally she was a backup singer for the group Orlando and Dawn because she was one of the members that was Dawn, of course. So she could actually sing in real life. That's how her and Nell Carter ended up meeting, and that's how she ended up getting the role with Give Me a Break and all that because they was cool like that. But also, do you also know that before the whole Family Matters thing, they tried to give her own show? You know who she was starring with in that show?
No.
This little kid called Janet Jackson. Yeah, she basically played her mama in the show. Y'all can look it up on YouTube. I forget the name of it, but terrible show. They only did like 5 episodes. It was awful.
Some of the shows back in the 80s, man, we never knew, man, it even hit the surface. Did one show and that pilot just did bad and that was just it. They didn't have any episodes after that. So 5 episodes wasn't bad when someone making it past that pilot episode.
Right. And okay. Because, you know what I'm saying, the auntie that introduced a lot of uncles. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so here's the thing. Truthfully, Family Matters first few episodes, it wasn't doing too good. No, Full House was good,
Yeah, it was.
but Family Matters not so much. But then everything changed one fateful day when they had season 1, episode 6, entitled Laura's First Date. And who was Laura's first date?
Mr.
This
Steven.
guy.
You know what I liked about that episode too? Was that the episode that kind of was like the 16 Candles movie when they had that party over at the Winslow house? Was that the episode?
No, that wasn't that one.
I'm trying to figure out because I'm
No, they kind of did it like a the dating game.
okay.
It was Urkel and a couple other kids, and they was like, oh heck no, not Urkel. Pick one of the other ones, but definitely don't pick Urkel. But of course, somehow, some way, he ended up being the one to go on the date. Now, here's the thing: during that actual episode, we learned that back in the day, they had a live studio audience, right? And it just so happens that this group was in the audience of college kids that were from a university out there in California. We got Ro checking in. What up, Ro? That's right, the Earth Man. So here's the deal, Hugh. The kids sit there. It was like, all right. Then the Urkel dude comes out. And they love dude, okay? Get the cheering and clapping. And so through that whole episode, anytime he came out, they'd be like, Urkel, Urkel, Urkel. And it's like, that was the livest crowd they had since the show started.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they usually do this little thing at the end, give you a survey. Okay, how'd you like the show? Who did you connect to, such and such and such? And the kids was like, we love that Urkel dude. Is he going to be back on? We want to see Urkel again. Because, also remember, back then, they usually did multiple episodes where they tape one show, then they tape another show. And, of course, he wasn't in that second episode, and the crowd reaction was way different. They wasn't feeling it. So next thing you know, they done wrote dude into the show. So now we got what we really know as Family Matters, right? But let me tell y'all a story you probably didn't know about Jaleel White. We got a few of them tonight. Hugh, now this was not his first TV show, right?
Absolutely.
It wasn't even his second TV show. We go back to a show called Charlie and Company. For y'all real TV heads, do y'all know about Charlie and Company? Charlie and Company starred Gladys Knight, and Urkel was her son in the show. That's what got him to transition to Step by Step, where he did also have a couple appearances on that episode. You're right about that. But he appeared in other shows also.
That was a really good show, Step by Step. I like that one.
Yeah, because that ended up eventually being part of that TGIF Friday lineup. But okay, here's the deal. Charlie and Son didn't work out because Gladys Knight basically had other stuff to do while she was doing the show. And the numbers was decent, but it basically was her. Flip Wilson was her husband, and Urkel was the kid. So that didn't work out. Keep in mind, Urkel and them still out in Hollywood, still trying to find little gigs. He did a couple of commercials, whatnot. And then he got the break of a lifetime. Do you know what show he was supposed to be on, you?
No, sir.
Well, let me tell you this story. I bet a lot of y'all did not know that Urkel was actually supposed to be on another very, very popular sitcom. That sitcom was The Cosby Show. Did you know that Urkel was actually signed to be one of the Cosby kids on that show?
Didn't know that.
Yep. He was signed. As a matter of fact, he was one of the first kids signed. I do believe it was, they signed, give me a second. They actually signed Denise first, I think. And then it was Theo. Then it was him. Then it was Vanessa. Okay. But at the last minute, they decided to change it and make Urkel's character on the show be a girl. So instead of getting Urkel as the little brother, we end up getting Rudy instead.
Okay.
But no, he had signed his name on the dotted line and everything. They had actually started doing a couple episodes. Hold on, we got people checking in. That was a good show, absolutely. Bud, yeah, there was talk about him being Bud as well. But
That would make sense.
at the time, he had other things going on. So what happens is he gets the little gig on Family Man. Remember, he was only supposed to play in one episode, just that one episode. But as it turned out, they loved him, so they ended up writing him in.
What's good, Coach V?
What up, Coach? Now here's the problem, good people. When they did that, that changed the whole complexity of the show. And the original people in the cast, I remember those folks. Yeah, these guys here, they did not like him at all. Not only that, they basically tried to sabotage him with the kids on the show to make them not like him also. It was really messed up, but the proof was in the pudding. The ratings went through the roof once they started putting Urkel on the show on a regular basis. I mean, I wasn't watching Family Matters the first few episodes. I ain't gonna lie. I seen that the first couple. It's all right. So
and you know what people problem was
they
too.
want to be Cosby Show. That's what I thought.
That's what everybody was saying. Want to be Cosby Show, and you know it was just too close to the Cosby Show and the whole situation going on there, and people wasn't happy to that first, especially knowing that the Cosby and how big it was. So yeah, that makes sense. That was one of my first issues with the show.
Fun fact I didn't know, and like I said, I know a lot of y'all know facts like this, like what Coach Dino came up with earlier about the Bud thing. I did know that one actually, but if you know facts about some of these shows we talk about them, feel free to put them in the comments. We like to learn some stuff too. The one that played the wife hated. Oh yeah, the one that played the wife, that would be Marie Jo Payton. Yeah, she did not like Urkel at all, nor did she like his parents at the time, because that was an issue. Now, okay, so needless to say, Family Matters became one of the top 5 shows on television within a couple years, okay? Everybody's watching TGIF at that point, you know what I'm saying? Between Full House and Family Matters, it was that. And then, of course, Urkel became a superstar overnight, all right? This dude here, he started not only being on Family Matters, but he started being on other shows. He was on a couple episodes of Full House. He was on a couple episodes of Step by Step when they created that a couple years later. He was on a couple other ABC shows. I'm trying to think of them at the time. I wrote it down in there. I ain't about to run in there and get it. But anyway, he was that dude, all right? Now, let's fast forward to season 4. Why season 4, Hugh?
I'm curious why season 4.
Season 4 is because that's what we all end up talking about when we talk Family Matters, right? At that point, we had Urkel. We, of course, had Eddie. We had Laura. Okay, we started to get her friend. Remember that kid there? We'll talk about her.
The Cherry.
Yep.
But yeah,
And then, of course, there was this kid. Y'all remember this kid?
Slightly.
Little sister Judy. Remember her? Who, ironically enough, did actually audition to be Rudy, by the way. But did not get it, as we see. But here's the problem. Part of why she didn't get it was because her parents. You got them Hollywood parents, and some of them move differently, okay? And this is where we come to this part of the story. Everybody wondered for years what happened to Judy in episode 4. No, season 4, episode 19, when she went up to her room and never came the hell back. Jamie Foxworth, that's correct. That's her name. Now, some of y'all know her name for another reason. And yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, Coach Dino. I see where you're going with it. And he will go there too. Give him a second. But look, went to the room, didn't come back. What was up with that? Well, part of the problem was When season 4 happens, usually what happens in the show is you get to that magical season 5. Season 5 usually indicates that this show is a big hit and it's about to hit this little thing called syndication, which means they're going to start showing it in other places and you're going to see it all the time. And of course, every time a show plays on a network, money, money, money. It's called residuals. So you definitely want your show to get to that point. And of course, the problem was that you got Urkel. And Urkel, that dude. So of course they go like, look, ain't no show without Urkel. You gonna pay me or what? Needless to say, he one of the top stars on ABC at that point. Yeah, we're gonna break you off. Okay, the other kids come, they're a bit more reasonable. Yeah, we know Urkel the man, nah. But yeah, here's our money, here's our money. Now here comes contract negotiations, exactly. Here comes Judy's parents. Like, yeah, well, she should be getting something close to that Urkel money because she wanted to start, the kids, the main part of the show now, blah, 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 right? Wrong. Because here's the thing. They started to invest more into the show. And it's a reason why they did that. But what happens is investing more in the show means, okay, we got to cut some costs somewhere. So what we'll do is we'll cut down the price that it makes to pay the parents. So they took a pay cut. And he took the pay bump. So that's even more reason now why they hate this dude.
Absolutely.
But keep in mind, the kids, they cool because, outside of the show, they hang out. They go to the same people. Interesting fact, Hugh, there is another connection between Family Matters and the Cosby Show. As you know, the kids, they grew up on the show. So, of course, they didn't go to regular school. They had tutors, right?
Right.
But, of course, all those kids grew up on the Cosby Show. So by the time they got to that point in the show, they didn't really need those tutors. But who did they start tutoring at that point?
Who, Urkel?
The Family Matters kids.
Okay.
The Full House kids. The Sister kids.
So all the damn kids just about.
And also the give me a second. Hold on. We got other people checking in. Coach Dino, what up, though? Right. Saved by the Bell kids. There we go. Okay. That's what I was thinking of. So, yeah, they get real tight and whatnot. They good with each other. But the adults are not. Now, we almost didn't have no season 5. Do you know why, Hugh? It wasn't because Urkel didn't get paid. Urkel was having health issues. Here's the problem. Did I do that? Yeah, Imagine talking like that for 10 and 12 hours at a time, for years at a time, and your voice ain't fully developed. That led him to start having vocal issues where it would be times where they do the show and he would lose his voice because, that was straining his voice. So they had to come up with something to say, okay, yeah, he getting older now. He can't do that little squeaky voice to that degree no more. We got to give him some type of way to rest his voice. So what happens? We create a whole new dimension for young Steve Urkel.
A multiverse.
And it all starts with this thing right here. You know Family Matters, you know what that is, right, Hugh?
Yes, sir. He's stepping in that and be a totally different person.
The good old transformation chamber. Okay? So what happens is they decide, yeah, we'll do it this way so that when he becomes Stefan Urkel, that gives him a chance to talk in his normal voice so he gets to rest his voice from talking like that so much. So that's why we get that fateful episode. That's right, young Stefan. That's why we get that episode where Stefan Urkel comes to light. Now, understand, I was already a fan of Family Matters. But when they did that episode right there, Man, Monday, that's all we're talking about. Man, you see the episode? And he had the cool suit on, and he was doing, and then they played "This Is for the Cool." And I love that song to this day because of that episode. That's probably one of my favorite 3 episodes of all time. What about you?
One of my favorites was the one when he was playing basketball when he had Larry Johnson on there. A lot of people don't know about that he was actually one of the producers on that show. And that's when I was like, yeah, that was actually a pretty good basketball episode because, at the time, too, you remember at the NBA, the inside stuff and how big basketball was back then. It was what we expected and respected at the time when it was still truly basketball, to me, in my opinion. And that was like one of my favorite episodes. And I was kind of surprised to hear that he did have something to do as far as the productions on that episode. And that's what started to make them hate him even more. Not only was he one of the best, but he started producing episodes.
Well, no, it's more to that part of the story than that. We're going to get to that. But here's the thing. As you can see in the episodes, he could play basketball for real.
Yeah.
He wanted to play basketball for real, which leads to a whole nother part of the scenario. Here's the thing. Suddenly, you have Urkel that's about 17, 18 at that point, and he wants to legitimately play basketball. During the summers when they weren't doing the show, he was going to all the camps that all the big players was going to back in the day. The Carmelos and people of that nature. Because he was that good. So, he was going to Nike camp and he was showing out a little bit. So that's why they incorporated part of that into the show. But also it led to the point where his parents decided, okay, we want to have you have some semblance of a normal life where you get to play. So actually he was doing the show during them couple years, but he also was going to regular school a couple days a week. Now imagine that. You Steve Urkel, okay? You one of the most popular television characters on TV.
Going to regular school.
You going to regular school. Could you imagine that?
I bet you it was chaos.
Well, he said he liked it and he hated it. Because on the one hand, yeah, he Urkel, so it was like, yeah. But he went to regular school. We went to regular school, Hugh.
So yeah,
Imagine Urkel going to McKenzie.
A lot of jealousy.
You know what it was about. He was getting bullied and everything. It was wild. But yet, when he wasn't there, he was on the set and they were showing him much love. He had his own dressing room. All the other kids had their group dressing room. A couple of the parents had their group dressing room. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, it started to be a lot of animosity. Yeah, but in the same token, they was doing numbers. Big time. Now, let me go to this here. We started getting other characters, right? Y'all remember this dude?
My man's good old Waldo.
Waldo Faldo? Waldo Geraldo Faldo? You remember that episode when them two first hooked up?
Yeah.
That was another favorite episode of mine because it was like, they're the last two people you would have put together, But they was feeling each other, though. It was crazy.
You can't forget about my boy. I know he'll be coming up soon.
Who was that?
Mr. Weasel.
Nah, I don't have a picture of Weasel, but yeah, we can talk about him.
We already know who Weasel was, though. He was a big fan of him regardless, from the old days,
But see, that's the thing. At that point in the show, it was all about the kids. You would see Harriet and Carl every now and then. But for the most part, it was about the kids.
Yeah. More or less going around Eddie's life.
Right. Now, keep in mind, on the one hand, you had Carl, he still was doing movies and stuff outside of the show. Because remember, at that point, we had Die Hard 2, Die Hard 3, did a couple more cop movies. So he was good. But, meanwhile, Jo Marie Patton, outside of the show, she really wasn't getting no work like that. So that made her hate him even more. Now, here's what happened. starting in season 6 when he started producing the show.
Yeah.
That would be Jaleel White. He was also one of the writers on the show. So a lot of those episodes when he was Stefan and all that, those were a lot of his ideas. Some of those clothes were actually some of his clothes from his personal collection and whatnot when he was Stefan. You know what I'm saying? Some of the people that end up coming on the show was people that he was friends with. For example, y'all remember the episode when Johnny Gill came on the show? They was cool in real life. Y'all remember oh yeah, I know y'all remember this episode, right? Y'all remember Eddie, right? Remember when he sang with Tracy Spencer?
Yeah, definitely remember that one.
Another good friend of Jaleel White's at the time. Rumored to have been dating a little bit. But of course, that's what really jumped him off as a sex symbol in the show. Let's talk about Eddie Winslow for a minute, shall we? What you know about young Eddie?
I remember a movie he was in, man. It was him and it was a Caucasian kid, and they was together. I think that the black boy family was lost, and he was trying to find his dad. Ended up catching and finding his dad at the end of the movie. I blatantly remembered it, but I definitely remember he was hanging around a little kid who ended up getting his habits, and it was actually a pretty decent movie. I just forgot the name of it though. I hope somebody in the comments can hit me off of that, or
Yeah,
unless
they
you.
might know the name of that movie. By all means, hit us up on it. But yeah, check it out though. You know what happens is after the show was over, uh Darius McQuarrie, he ends up moving down to Atlanta. And that's when Atlanta was popping. Okay, because keep in mind, that was like at one point the mecca for all the black people to go hang out at that didn't want to deal with Hollywood, particularly the youngsters. Okay, so a lot of those people that we'll talk about in other shows, they ended up relocating to Atlanta at some point in time. He was one of them. That's where he met the young lady that he ended up marrying. You know who he was married to at one point?
No.
How about Karen Stevens?
Mm.
Corinne Stevens. You know her as?
Oh yeah, Superhead.
Yep, you got it, buddy. So yeah, but he was the man down there. You know, he had his own table down there at Magic City. He hung out with people like Earthquake and Eddie Grip and all them. They used to hang out down there in Atlanta at the time. Him and of course, him and Jaleel good friends now, but he also was good friends with Chris Tucker and a few other people down that way. So, him being on Family Matters kind of blew him up in life. And then, of course, remember at one point, he was actually recording music. So, he wanted to be a music star, but not quite so much. But, he could blow a little bit. Yep, you got it. Superhead.
Yeah, I remember the movie now. What came across my screen when I was looking it up? It was called Big Shots. It came out in 1987.
I remember that movie.
With the two kids who stole the Mercedes, and there was a dead body in the trunk. Yeah, that was a big
Right.
crazy movie.
But yeah, they had all the kids, like I said, so the kids pretty much took over the show. When he was Stefan, remember it was the couple white kids that was always in the mix in that show. They end up being in the Sister Act 2 movie, if you remember that. Let's go back to this. Now, again, because she didn't cooperate, that's why she went to her room and never came back, okay? And of course, what ends up happening is she did a couple of commercials here and there. She had a couple bit parts, but for the most part, the parents spent up the money, all that stuff. She wanted to get back into the business. She ends up getting back in the business, all right. She ends up getting back into the porno business. That's why a lot of y'all know her as Jamie Foxworth, because you know her from her porno days. I do believe Coach Dino mentioned that earlier. All right, we got other comments. He did record music, says Ro. It was good. I agree, Ro. He never released it though.
Mm.
You
Interesting.
know, another person that he befriended before he died was the legendary Tupac Shakur.
Mm.
So, you know, he had a lot of interesting friends in the industry. Classic, says her. All right. Talk to me, Hugh. Favorite characters, favorite episode. What we talking? What we talking?
One of my favorite characters, of course, was Steve. I feel like when the show started to get watered down is when he had his dance. Y'all remember, for the people who's checking it out, that Urkel dance
Do
episode.
the Urkel dance.
Still was a good episode because it had a lot of controversy, a lot of people slipping on this. Hit up them comments, y'all. I'm already know y'all know my man's old dog was in there. Lorenz Tate. He was one of the bad kids who was always getting in trouble on the show. That was his role.
True.
And he gave Urkel some alcohol. And Urkel got drunk and almost fell off of the balcony after he did that. Because I don't think that Lorenz Tate or better yet, I forgot his character name on Family Matters, but y'all know who I'm talking about.
I do
He didn't
remember that episode.
he didn't
Absolutely.
like the fame, and he didn't like how the women was reacting and how Urkel was moving, and that's when he, gave them some of that drink and got them all messed up. And I thought that was one of the better episodes because it was talking about alcohol and just things the kids go through as teenagers. And that's what I like because you always had those controversial episodes.
Right. Because remember, Lorenz Tate was in another episode where him and Urkel ended up boxing each other because he
Yeah.
was bullying everybody. So, you know, he, of course, was beating Urkel up, but then that's when all the other kids jumped in like, you got to fight me next. Fight me next. And then me. And then he was like, yeah, Waldo, let's get out of here. Okay.
Because that was funny too, because Waldo was like his sidekick until he ended up getting his own spotlight. So yeah, that was actually pretty cool to see a lot of the transaction in the show. And
It was Willie. That's right. You're right.
kept calling
Let's
him
go, Willie.
Willie.
That was his character name. You right, bro. Good looking. Shout
That's
out
what's
to
happening,
Israel
man.
and my cousin Deborah checking into the show. We talking about family matters, y'all, and some of the characters and the episodes and all that good stuff. Now, I always did not like the fact that it took them so long to really start incorporating Cherry Johnson into the show. You know, she would be in bits and pieces of episodes the first few years, but she really didn't become like a character to like later on. You know what I'm saying?
And she had some, we already knew who she was, man. She grew up to be beautiful, and that was
Right. I mean,
something.
because if y'all look at the first picture, I know y'all remember that kid because, of course, she was the best friend on the show and in real life, by the way, of Punky Brewster, also known as the Great Soleil Moon Frye. They are best friends to this day.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. In fact, when they did the reboot of Punky Brewster, initially she was only supposed to be in a couple episodes. Soleil Moon Frye insisted that she be in every episode or she was not doing the reboot. That's a real friend. And then she insisted that she got paid properly as well, which was awesome.
That's actually a good story too, man. Because like in the industry, man, it'll eat you up and spit you out. And one of the things you mentioned that's so cold when it comes to the industry is how the parents are like money hungry and they grab all their kids, money, and how they spent all their kids' money until they don't have nothing. And I forgot what the name of that clause was, but
Example,
the kids had a contract, and it was a clause in court now that protected
yes.
them from the parents taking their money and taking all their earnings away.
I think that comes from a few people that had issues like that, and that's why they came to that rule. I know Gary Coleman was one of them because they say his parents was running through his loot, and you know Gary was making big money
Yeah,
because before there was Urkel, it was Gary Coleman. Because remember, he was so popular at that point, he started being in movies and everything. But yeah, like I said, in the prime of the show, though, when we talking Urkel, think about it. That dude was the star of the show, right? He one of the
absolutely.
writers on the show. Okay. Dude had his own toys from Mattel. Dude had his own cartoon. In fact, Dude actually had his own Christmas movie. Check this out, Hugh.
Urkel
Urkel
said,
said, "Oh yeah, you're right. Thank you for that, cousin. Hold on. That is why that initially happened. The great Shirley Temple. Speaking of child stars whose parents stole their money, Shirley Temple at the time was one of the highest paid people in Hollywood. Period. At the time when she was a child star, I'm talking about adult or kid. She was making that type of money, and they messed around and got all her loot.
I found that clause too. It was referred to a law like California Coogan Law, designed to protect children performing earnings by mandating employers set aside a percentage, usually of like 15%, in a trust account, a Coogan account, for the minor to access upon adulthood, preventing financial exploitation by parents or guardians. So that was actually what it was, the California Coogan Law.
And that's a good thing because, like I said, some of these kids they've been working since look.
Kids
I mean,
blind,
especially
yeah.
people like Urkel. He had been in the business since he was 6 years old.
And it's sad how the people, like you said, Gary Coleman, how their parents was just eating their money dry to where they had no earnings, man.
Mhm.
They had to protect those kids, man, because the sad part was too, some of the kids we know that once they became adults, they didn't look as cute as they did as kids, and they couldn't get a lot of roles, and that caused one of the kids, unfortunately, that I remember, the kid who was on It movie, the original It movie, who played Billy as a kid. He committed suicide as he got older because it wasn't no more roles for him as he became more mature and he became an adult.
Right, and then you had a story of people like the dude that played Screech on Saved by the Bell. We'll talk about that eventually.
Yeah,
Kids like that. Speaking of tragic stories, of course, talking Family Matters, we eventually got to talk about this young lady right here.
yeah, she was gorgeous.
Beautiful, beautiful. Michelle Thomas. Now, of course, some of y'all know her before the Family Matters. Again, another tie to the show known as the Cosby Show, as Theo's girlfriend, Justine. You remember that episode? Like, you got the blues. You gonna sing a blues song about your girl, Justine, Justine. I love me. Remember that? But of
Definitely, man.
course, for a time, her being Michelle Thomas was actually dating Malcolm Jamal Warner in real life. You remember the episode where they was together at the Def Comedy Jam?
Nah, I don't recall that one.
Yep. Yeah, Daryl said I had the biggest crush on her. You and
Yes,
me both, buddy.
most sexiest chicks I knew.
Okay, now let's have this debate, y'all. Y'all let us
Big up
know
to
in the
my
comments.
ass D.
Who do
Thanks
you
for
think was better for Urkel? Myra Mukha Brontros or that darn Laura? Now they both was beautiful women, don't get me wrong. But I'm sorry, I would have went with Myra all day long.
I'd have definitely picked her every time.
Absolutely. But see, here's the story. Okay, so of course, Michelle Thomas, who of course played Myra, Urkel's other love interest. She was on the show, but during the last few years of the show, Myra was having some serious health issues. She, in fact, had cancer. And as a result, that started to affect her ability to do the job. Let's see, my cousin says she picks Laura.
Hmm.
But yeah, she had cancer. She started to do cancer treatments in between episodes and whatnot. So, you'll see like between season 7 and 9, you'll see her like in several straight episodes, but then you don't see her for a while. That was part of why. But here's the thing: in real life, Michelle Thomas, who was basically older than most of the other kids on the show, including young Steve Urkel, also known, of course, as Jaleel White, she started to be more like a big sister to Jaleel. So much so that when she started to have the health issues and her parents weren't around, She went to live with him and his parents. And actually, his mother, in that last year of her life, was her caregiver when she got to be too weak to take care of herself. So yeah, in that last season where you don't see her that much, that's part of why. Because she was doing the cancer treatments and all of that. You also notice probably that she looked a little thinner in the last year or so in the episodes. And they had her wear like more bulkier stuff at times. That was part of why.
Yeah, that was sad because when that happened, a lot of times we didn't really know because there wasn't a lot of internet things that was out there at the time. But yeah, man, it was actually hard on a lot of people on the show too, and you could tell the impact of that, man. It was draining those years when that happened.
Absolutely. Now, part of the show that people really don't give credit to is they talked a lot about what ended up being a lot of the stuff that we see now in terms of modern technology. I mean, because think about it, when you had the episode and Irk was on the phone, remember that? When they was talking about the whole thing with Walter and whatnot. That was one of the first cell phones I seen on TV. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, the transformation chamber and all the scientific experiments he would do. The rocket pack, remember that? Episode where he tore up the house. Remember Earthbot? Remember that?
Yeah, a bunch of weird episodes, man.
Yeah, but again, these are things that end up coming to real life. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, it really got interesting when they decided, okay, we're gonna find a way to make it to where now Urkel plays all these multiple characters on the show. Daryl says, I'll go with Myra. Laura got cuter when the show was over, but more as an adult. Yeah, I really liked how she looked the last couple of years more so than the middle years. She was a goofy looking kid, truthfully.
Yeah, because I know for sure everybody, man, who was dudes for the most part was going with Myra, man. She was cute. She was quirky. She was everything you wanted, man.
And I kind of had a thing for short girls as it was, and because she was shorter than everybody, but it was that. But yeah, she definitely was that deal.
For sure.
But okay, so here's the thing. Now we got Urkel playing all the different characters. Remember, you had Urkel playing Urkel. You had him playing Stefan or Kale. You had him playing his cousin. Remember that?
Yeah, Murder
Murder
Urkel.
Urkel.
Weird, man. Yeah, that
Oh
was
man.
brother. When he was hitting on Eddie, that was too much, man.
Cousin says sometimes cute ain't all that. But remember, Myra was smart also. She was a nerd in her own right.
And then Laura was giving my man's a hard
Plus,
time.
Myra was top heavy. Okay, Daryl. Well, you went there, bruh.
Yeah, she was very top heavy.
Facts. But yep, so yeah, he played cousin Myrtle Urkel. And of course, again, the older people in the staff, they did not like that at the time.
Wasn't feeling that neither, man. That was weird.
And he definitely said that did traumatize him playing that character in particular because of how he would get dealt with and how the audience kind of responded to him at times as Myrtle Urkel. Again, that was during that time he was in school also. So I can only imagine what that was for.
That was extra hard on him, man.
Right. Here you was trying to be a hooper and everything and an athlete, but meanwhile, you playing a dude in a dress.
He could have easily said no, though. You know what I'm saying? He decided to take that role, so he gonna have to eat some of that himself too, man. But all due respect.
And it's crazy because remember at one point Carl played an episode where he wore a dress when he went undercover and whatnot. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember Eddie played as a female in one of the episodes, as I recall.
Yeah, man. It seemed like they always try to get dudes to wear these dresses and stuff in the industry, trying to talk them into it every single time, and they do it too.
Well, again, that's the whole scenario that my man's like to talk about on his podcast all the time. I'm trying to think of Corey Holcomb. There we go. He got a thing about people hitting the dress. But again, like I said, he's playing all the, and then of course when he went in the chamber and started playing all the other characters, I think that's when it kind of jumped the shark for me when he started doing that. When he hit the chamber and beat Bruce
Yeah.
Lee and all that other stuff.
That Bruce Lee episode was wild, man. That's when I started looking,
Right.
and it started losing me at that point.
He agreed to it. It was a part of the decision. Yeah. True enough, Queen. True enough. But here's the thing. It all came to a head one faithful episode in that last season where he played the character O-Dog, original dog.
Was that when they went to CBS?
No, that's when he was his cousin from Detroit playing a gangster.
No, because they moved, they left networks then. That's what I was saying. Was that when
I should bring
kind of hurt their ratings.
The last season of Family Matters was not on ABC. That point had switched over to CBS and had a whole nother Friday night type scenario going on over there. But yeah, he was OG Dog on that episode. And what happened was there's a scene where him and Harriet are supposed to have this discussion. What ends up happening is they end up switching that scene eventually, and him and Carl are the ones that have that argument that they had. But originally, it was him and Harriet that was supposed to have the argument. And he basically was supposed to disrespect her and say some foul words to her. This is what he had written into the script. So, of course, when they did the original scene, she was not having it. She was pissed. Pissed to the point where it ended up being a confrontation. And if you go look on the various podcasts to talk about it and whatnot, the documentaries and whatnot, it said it got physical, where she basically was slapping him and all that type of stuff. It got to that point. And the kids had to break everybody up. And at that point, keep in mind, for years she had been saying, look, I'm just doing this because, I was the original character and I'm committed to doing the show. But in actuality, I don't want to do this show no more. I'm going to do it because, it's only right that I stick with the show that I started. But what it really was no, I really ain't getting no other big roles out here like that. So I need to just hang in here and deal with it until something come along. And it never really did. But after that episode, that was it. Because, of course, they was like, look, you can't be putting your hands on folks. You done went too far. And, of course, it came down to one of those, either she go or I go. And, of course, Urkel is Urkel. So she was out of it. And that's why in the last, 10, 12 episodes, you get the different mom. I really didn't like that they did that. I hated that.
But when you had kids, and it's so funny because now that I'm thinking about it, man, we're gonna have to talk about something that goes with this whole pot right here. And it's like this gumbo that we're cooking up right now. We're gonna have to probably go with something like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because it was the same type of situation.
We're definitely gonna talk about that show down the line.
On that one, probably like within the next couple of weeks or so. Let us know in the comments.
It's a lot of similarities that come into play there. And remember, a lot of them actually grew up together. The kids from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and the kids from the Cosby Show, the kids from Family Matters, they all hung out in the same circles. The different world cast, them type of folks. They all that same particular age.
Because Urkel was kind of basically like Will, and then the mother hated Will on the show, and it's kind of the same reaction right now.
I mean, it's a little different in that Aunt Viv was not the major character. Because remember, the show was literally supposed to have been about her and her family.
Weird part about it. It's supposed to have been about her, Carl, and the grandmother.
Right? Because they often will refer to the show in mixed company as the Steve Urkel show. Because truthfully, that's what it was.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about Shaq, says my cousin. I don't know where that comes into the discussion because you want to fill me in. Okay, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was my favorite show as a kid. I was obsessed with it. Well, yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that in future episodes sometime soon.
Hit us on that because I would like to get that on there too because it's so close to some of the similarities to the Family Matters. That'd be a nice little show we can actually go into afterwards.
Right.
But
Now, of course, we got to talk about what happened to Family Matters. Because y'all remember the last episode when Steve went into space and came home. And, only when we kiss, Laura Lee, only when we kiss. Now, here's the thing. They had already had season 9 and season 10 and season 11 signed up for
mm,
initially. And of course, it, again, was going to be on CBS. What happens is the people that own the rights to the show and initially sold it over to CBS, there were still other entities that own parts of the show. And they
okay,
sold those rights to this little company we know as Disney. Because remember, that was around the time where Disney bought ABC.
you're correct.
So what happens is now Disney owns the rights to Family Matters, and they wanted to make changes. And their version of the show, going into season 10 and 11, they was gonna write everybody else up out it. In other words, the show is gonna start to be about just the kids and Urkel, no parents. And most of the show is gonna be about Urkel and Laura. That next year they was gonna get married. They was gonna move out of Chicago. The kids was gonna be doing their thing, and it was gonna be about that life. And the original premise of the show was done at that point. So of course there was all type of contract battles and whatnot, and that just didn't work out. And then of course they wanted to pay Urkel more money because not only was he the producer at that point, he directed some episodes, he was writing it and whatnot. And the other cast members, they just wasn't having that. It all just kind of blew up after that. So that is why we did not get season 10 and season 11. It was talks a couple years after that, a rebooting and just doing a show about Laura and Urkel and their kids. That didn't happen. A couple years ago, they went to Urkel saying, "Okay, we want to do a reboot and put it right next to Fuller House on Netflix." That didn't happen. Urkel came to them a year or so ago with an idea for what he thought the show should be. That didn't happen. So a lot of people. I'd love to see a reboot of Family Matters. What about you? You?
I definitely would like to, man, because we never really got the end that we deserved. And I think when they took it and kind of twisted and made Urkel a gangster, that took away from what we wanted to see. Definitely one of the best of Fresh Prince and Martin.
Sitcoms, yeah, yeah. Family Matters definitely was Fresh and Martin. Oh, yeah. Basically, if you guys have ideas of shows you want us to talk about, by all means, please let us know. Put them in the comments. Next week, you guys, we are going to be talking about that '70s show. So if you got some memories and thoughts about that one, make sure you let us know. Because Keon is checking in. What up, Mr. Scroggins? What's happening, family? Hopefully you checked out the show yesterday. We did shout you out. We love what you're doing over there in the Kansas City area for the youth, teaching them basketball and the game and all that. That's just awesome.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking down too, man, because who playing right now. I'm looking at this
Nah,
cast.
this ain't the sports show. You ain't about to do that. We ain't about to do that. I know who playing right now. And we about to get to watching them in a few minutes. Finish the show, my man.
I had to look at my girls, but no,
Finish
man,
the show, brother.
feel like when it came down to Family Matters, it was a good show, but it was like a lot of fighting and things that we didn't know about that was low key. But it sucks because of the fact is it was like they didn't like Urkel from the get go, man, and that guy never had a chance. But it was good to hear them kind of talk when they had that reunion to kind of get things out in the open and kind of get that dirty laundry out. But at the same time, man, I feel like I wanted to see a lot more of what Carl and Harriet and those characters had to do with the show. Because basically, you made the show about them. But we seen shows that switched at the very last minute, like with the Websters and stuff. But it was a way they could have made it work, though, man. And I definitely feel like that was still some of the sour grapes that we talk about to this day because things has never been the same once he got on there and they just really gave him everything, that they worked so hard for.
I mean, in the end, the show was popular because of him. I
But
mean,
the show
think
would have
about
never been
it.
created with Harriet and Carl though.
Cause I remember certain episodes where he wouldn't be on as much, and again, that usually happened because again, that was resting his voice. So the show would be
Mhm.
more about the other characters. You wasn't as invested in those shows. Let's be honest.
And that's where all the turmoil came from. And then him, when they switched him over to the gangster, that really just took everything, to a whole nother level. Cause that's when I think they lost the crowd and lost the audience with that whole ordeal.
I don't think they lost the audience so much with that episode. I think it's just that year when they switched over to CBS, it
It
just
wasn't the
had a
same.
different feel that just never really got to me. I mean, in the end, they probably would have got away with another season, but I don't think they would have finished that next year. I think that
No,
would
no.
have been it.
And then with Disney buying ABC too, Disney was called hard at how they handle things. Because once they owned
Very much
ABC, they
so.
was like, man, the hell with y'all. We taking all our cartoons off here too, and just ruin the kids' weekends on Saturdays.
The House of Mouse. Because, yeah, if y'all want to know part of why we suddenly stopped having Saturday morning cartoons, we'll definitely have to do that episode also. Because Disney had a big part to play in that, as well as the company known as Mattel Toys. Yeah, we'll
And it
talk
seemed
about it.
like when everything went to streaming, man, and when they got their own networks like Disney, Nickelodeon, and
That was
everybody,
only part of the story, sir. It's a little deeper than that. But yeah, we'll definitely get into it. But no, like I said, I definitely like Family Matters. I'm glad we did this as one of the first shows because, a lot of people could relate to that. He was one of the first people that really made being smart kind of cool. And of course, that went on to other shows like Big Bang Theory. And
smart guy, and
yep, exactly.
but it was
Those
cool
type of
too, man,
shows.
because he was comfortable in his own skin. Of course, the voice thing got annoying. He had to, get his real voice in, except for using that low squeaky voice. But yeah, that's one thing you gotta even look at too, man. He made being a nerd or being a smart kid cool at the time when, that wasn't really going on as often, but it was good though because, like you said, and no disrespect to the parents, like you said, I'm not throwing shade on Carl and Harriet on the show, but when it got down to the kids, it seemed like it got more better because the show improved because we were kids and it reflected on our life situations and the things we was going through, and having Uncle be a part of it definitely helped with the show. But even though like the situation with Eddie was going through, Laura, you had all of them had their own little storylines at one point that actually made it interesting for us as kids of that age who was growing up in that time.
And remember, in the end, Family Matters ended up being the third longest running sitcom featuring a primarily African American cast. It was on longer than the Cosby Show. It was on longer than A Different World. It was on longer than a lot of shows. Only the Jeffersons and I forgot the other show. Only they had more episodes than Family Matters that featured a predominantly African American cast. That is.
Yeah, because the show that had the most episodes was the Bundys.
Well, that's a whole nother story, and actually, that's not correct. Modern day, correct. Overall, no. Again, we'll talk about that when we get to because we definitely got to talk about the Bundys. At the time, you remember what was going on. Some of them episodes would be like Different Strokes. Different Strokes did 7 seasons, I believe. No, 6. So no, not quite Different Strokes. And remember, we talk about a show that was a predominantly black cast. Different
Yeah,
Strokes was literally half and half.
pretty much. So yeah, you can't really count that.
Yep. I know some people will want to throw Facts of Life in that mix also, but again, mostly white cast. Okay,
Predominant.
says, hold on. She says, okay. Gotcha. But yeah, I'm loving the comments, y'all. Definitely want y'all when we do the show, chime in with it. Let us know some of your favorite characters, episodes, all that. Definitely want to know some of the shows that you guys want us to do also. Like I said, next week we're gonna do that 70 show. Definitely one of Hugh's favorites. Definitely want to hear. his comments on some of that stuff. We talked about it the other night, Hugh. It was a hell of a discussion, was it not?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff I remember, man. Crazy as it sounds, because at the time I was messing around with what they was messing around with when they was getting in them circles, and I was watching them episodes, and I could relate in high school. So, yeah, that part was actually pretty intriguing to me. And that's when I first watched it, man. It was a half a day. You know, I did indulge in what they was indulging in.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I went home and I watched that show, and I was like, damn, that's what this about? Watched it ever since, man. I watched it to the very last season. Better yet, I got all of them on DVD too, like the box sets.
She says mine as well, that 70 show, especially that circle where they
Oh
pulled
man,
out the brown paper bag and whatnot. But yep, like I said, we got that one for y'all next week. And then the following week, keep in mind, we're not just going to talk about comedies. We got a very special episode. We're going to talk about a show that I can't get this brother to be quiet about, because every time we have any type of conversation, somewhere in there he throwing it. You know what I'm talking about? He let him know.
Welcome to Dairy.
This dude love that show. And he ain't by himself. A lot of y'all do. If you will know me, you will know I don't do spookies. But remember, this ain't my show. This ain't his show. This y'all's show. So we got to do all the shows that y'all like, including the ones that I ain't too comfortable with.
I'm glad they dethroned Stranger Things too. I want all the smoke. Say something in the comments if y'all disagree.
Well, we'll have that discussion. It was really good, says Empress. So yeah, definitely we will talk about that. Again, y'all, thank y'all so much for checking in and tuning in. Definitely liking that a lot of y'all got involved in the show. Appreciate y'all. We will be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. Talking TV again. Two Unks doing our thing. We still don't have a closing credit type thing for the show yet, but we do have an opening that we can credit to our good friend Road to Stardom. Thank you for making the opening song, bro. Appreciate that. But we also have a closing theme song, and that was made by me. I made that one. Yeah. So we're going to play that on the way out. Any final words, Hugh?
Definitely appreciate y'all, man. It's always fun, man. We just want to do something a little different. Definitely appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely feel like it was great talking, good vibes, man. It's just the memories and, just reminiscing, man. We want to do something that everybody can relate to. Like he said, man, he wanted me to get off the sports, and so I had to. But just the way you guys responded to the show, we know y'all enjoy it, and we definitely want to continue to give y'all some good episodes.
Absolutely.
And
So yeah, like I said, and when you go back and rewatch it, and share the live with everybody, let them know. Yeah, they be talking about TV on Thursdays. Y'all should chime in, or they about to talk about your favorite show this week. You better chime on in.
That's what we want to know too in them comments. Let us know your favorite shows, which y'all want us to talk about, and we could do that as well.
Yeah, let us know some of the facts that we missing along the way, so we can discuss that in the comments as well. Again, till next week, y'all. These two Unks Talking TV. I'm gonna play that closing credit song for y'all, and hopefully by next week I'll have all that together for us. But until then, Hugh, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Good first episode. And we about to be out of here and go watch our girls get it in. All right, y'all. Deuces.